So I would say to any potential investor that this can't be the reason that you decided to invest. It's too big a decision for that. But if you know you want to move forward with an investment, I would urge you to do so in the next few months. If you delay a few months now, it could lead to several years of delay.
This should mainly be
Hello everyone, welcome to today's meeting official. And today we are very honored to have Mr. Gary here, Gary Merson, who is from the former official of the Department of Homeland Security and also working very closely with the USCIS. So Gary Merson, thank you here for joining us for Globevisa here. And before we begin today's topic, could you briefly introduce a little bit about your personal background to our audience?
Thank you so much, Julia. I want to thank you and the whole team at Globevisa for the hospitality and the warm welcome that you provided me here in China. And I'm really excited to be with you today.
Thank you.
As you mentioned, I just completed a 20-year career with the U.S. government. I worked in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and also had the privilege of working in the U.S. House of Representatives and the White House and the National Security Council. I worked very closely with USCIS on all of the immigration programs, and specifically on the EB-5 program. My office worked with people who are having challenges navigating the process, and so it was always a real pleasure to help people. I also chaired for many years a regular meeting with the Department of State and USCIS on management of the visa backlogs, and that's so important in EB-5, and I know we'll talk about that in a moment. When I worked in Congress in both 2012 and then again in 2015 and 2016 as the chief counsel for the Democrats on the Immigration Subcommittee, all matters related to immigration came through my office. I worked on some of the early versions of the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act of 2022. It took several years after I was there for the law to ultimately become enacted.
Thank you so much for Gary to sharing about yourself, about your background and your wonderful career in the government. Thank you so much. The main topic of today's conversation about the EB-5 backlog. So the EB-5, the visa backlog is always be the huge worry for many Chinese investors. So I know that you used to work on this issue between the USCIS and the Department of the State. So could you explain that how the set-aside category, especially the rural, actually help the new investors to reduce the risk of the backlog? And what do you think will happen with the backlog in the future?
It's such a good question, Julia, and as you said, it's really important to anybody considering the EB-5 program. So let me start with a bit of background. Most U.S. immigration categories are subject to annual numerical limits. Not all of them are. For example, the closest family relatives, like if you're going to petition for your spouse, there's no cap. But in almost all the other categories, there's a numerical limit. And in EB-5, that limit is generally about 10,000 per year. And that includes the principal investor, the spouse, and the children, what we call derivatives. Since demand exceeds supply, we've developed a system to manage that backlog. And that's the visa bulletin that the Department of State publishes every month. And people can go online and look at this. It may look a little challenging to read, so let me try to help decipher it for people. When the category shows C for current, that means that you can go ahead and file or complete processing. When it shows U, and this is rare, that means that visas are unavailable, and that usually only happens at the very end of the fiscal year. What we often see in the visa bulletin are dates, and these are called cutoff dates. Now, when you file the investor petition, the I-526 petition, that establishes your priority date. And you have to have a priority date before the cutoff date, before the date that shows in the visa bulletin, to be able to move forward with the process. Now, in this monthly bulletin that the Department of State publishes, there are charts for families and charts for employment. The EB-5 program falls under employment charts. And then there are charts for when you can file and charts for when you can complete processing. So when the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act of 2022 was enacted, It provided for set-aside or reserved categories. So 20% of visas are reserved for rural projects, 10% for projects in high employment areas, and 2% for infrastructure projects. The EB-5 Reform Integrity Act also provided for priority processing for rural projects. And so this, coupled with the reserve categories, has been tremendously successful in driving investments into rural areas in the United States. Prior to the 2022 law, we saw most EB-5 projects in New York City and in Los Angeles and in Miami. Now we're seeing most projects, I think, in rural areas. And so it's been very beneficial. But we know that since 2022, there have been enough petitions filed to start to create new backlogs. And so we have a window here, just a few months. We don't know exactly how long it's going to be. So I would say to any potential investor that this can't be the reason that you decided to invest. It's too big a decision for that. But if you know you want to move forward with an investment, I would urge you to do so in the next few months. If you delay a few months now, it could lead to several years of delay.
So what the specific time would you expect the backlog will happen?
So we don't know specifically, Juliet. Some commentators, including former Department of State officials, believe that coming likely in 2026 and likely early in 2027.
Thank you so much for sharing that professional insight with our audience. I think it's very helpful to the investors who are concerned about the EB-5. Thank you, Gary. So we've seen frequent adjustment to the U.S. immigration policies, like the Trump card, and also those changes in the non-immigration visa rules. So from your perspective, so what possible EB-5 policy will be changed mainly happened in the short or the midterm?
The first thing I want to note is the EB-5 program is on more solid footing than it ever has been. The program is more transparent with reduced risk than ever before and faster access to employment authorization and other benefits. But there are challenges looming. And there are 3 dates, unfortunately we only know 2 of them specifically, that are important for investors to keep in mind. The first is related to what we call grandfathering, and that date is September 30th, 2026. So what grandfathering means is if you apply before that date, again, September 30th, 2026, your application will move forward no matter what happens with the program. The second date is September 30th, 2027, and that's the date the program sunsets or expires and will need congressional reauthorization. So it may sound odd, but the EB-5 program is not a permanent program. It's authorized for a period of time, and then Congress needs to take new action to keep the program in place. Now the benefit of this is it allows Congress to review the program and make sure it's working as intended. So Congress will have to review the program and take action before September 30th, 2027. Now I'm confident that the program will be extended, but for anybody who's worried about that, then they have the next year to file, and if they do so, they have a guarantee that they will continue through the process. The other dates that are important are related to the backlogs, but we don't exactly know when those backlogs will happen, and so we just know it's in the next few months.
So thank you for Gary sharing your expert idea with us about the backlog, about the future, about the change. So thank you for that. So let's move to another topic. We know that you finished your government work, you work with the Regional Center ALC. So would you mind to share with us why did you choose to join ALC and what are your responsibilities in ALC? What's your role? And of course, the ALC and our Globevisa are long-term partner with each other. So what does your role mean to our investors?
So I'm really thrilled to be working with John Chen and the team at ALC. They're EB-5 industry leaders, and they have a track record of success in the program. ALC currently has 38 approved projects. That form that's used is the I-956F. So ALC has 38 approved 956F projects. And this is very important for investors. They always want to look for projects that have already received approval from USCIS. One of the things we talk about all the time at ALC is being an immigrant-first regional center. And that means we think of the immigrant experience, before we think of the investment or the deal, which are of course critically important. But we know that immigrants are the lifeblood of the EB-5 program. There's no investments, there's no deals, there's no projects without them, and we always want to keep that top of mind at ALC. I'm currently serving as the Executive Vice President at American Lending Center, and in this role I spend a lot of my time helping investors to better understand the program because it is a very complicated program, and I believe with my background I can help them understand it a little bit better. I also track legislation, regulatory developments from the agency. I meet frequently with immigration lawyers and other trusted partners. And above all, I try to think strategically about the program. Where will the program be in 2 years and 5 years? And what does that mean for investors? And how can we make the program work a little bit better for them?
Thank you so much. Thank you for your wonderful explanation about your role in ALC and how can help the investor to know more about EB-5. Thank you. And Mr. Merson, and we all know that a successful EB-5 investment needs two big things. A great regional center like ALC and of course a professional immigration agency which can guide the investors through the whole process. So now you are working closely with both of them. So what do you think about Globevisa, the biggest strengths of ALC's partners?
So we say at American Lending Center that EB-5 is a journey, but it's not a journey traveled alone. And as I said before, it's a major decision to make the investment, to think about moving to the United States. It's a several-year process. And so you want to work with trusted partners who have a track record of success. That begins with the agent, may involve an immigration lawyer, and of course the regional center. And you want all of these partners to be transparent, to adhere to the highest standards of integrity. You want them to be responsive to you. Is your agent answering your questions? Are they answering them in a clear way? Is the regional center able to explain the project in a clear way? The more complexity there is, probably the more risk there is. And so we know that our relationship with Globevisa is essential to our shared success. And we look forward to working together for many years to come.
Thank you so much. Of course, we are working together for many years. Thank you. So I think the content of today's interview is very rich. Thank you, Gary. Thank you for your sharing. And we believe this information will be extremely helpful to all the investors who are concerned about the EB-5. And thank you again for your participation. And we wish you all the best in your work.
Thank you so much, Julia.
This is EB officials. We speak with leaders whose calls are crucial. Make the world your home somehow. Let's be a global citizen now.